Thank you, everybody, for joining us once again, Friday evening, 5:30 p.m. Kuala Lumpur time. This is the Sheila Exchange, and I am Sheila Singham, the founder of Human Equations, Sendirian Berhad. And with me today, I have my guest, educationist Valerie Dombey, very interesting international sort of background, eclectic experience, and corporate sector. She does a bit of drama. She is passionate about English and English teaching and English literature. And she has been living in Malaysia for the past 21 over years. Today she joins me, and we selected Valerie to come today on the show because it's going to be International Day of Education. And what could be more appropriate than to have a teacher on the show to talk about teaching in the new norm? So Valerie, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to be with us.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, our pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You look very international. You speak very international. I'm sure our audience will want to know a little bit about who you are, where you're from.
Sure. So yeah, if you're wondering why I look the way I do and the way I sound, or why I sound the way I do, it's because so I was born and raised in Singapore, and my father is from the UK. My mother is Eurasian from Singapore, and basically I was in Singapore for most of my education, other than the 3 years that I went away to university in Australia. And then in the year 2000, I got married and moved to Malaysia. And also, as I was sharing with Sheila just now, there weren't enough Chinese guys in Singapore. I had to find myself a Chinese guy in Malaysia.
Oh, well, Singapore's lost, Malaysia's gained, right? So how long have you actually been in the teaching profession?
Well, teaching-wise, I've been in it for more than 20 years, dabbling in many different things, from starting up my own company when I was in Singapore, trying to provide extracurricular English lessons for government schools. And then I even did some corporate training while I was in Singapore. When I moved to Malaysia, initially I had to dabble in different kinds of things, but still within the teaching line, in education centers, more corporate training as well, before I finally got into international schools about 7 years ago, right around the time when it was time for me to send my own kids to school. Miraculously, this beautiful job ended up on my lap in an international school. Very blessed to be in it still, even till today. Yeah.
Good, great. And your subject, of course, as I mentioned earlier, would be English language and English literature. So you're trained in that. Great. So how did you cope, with making that change from classroom training to virtual training? What did you do to equip yourself? Because from my background, I'm also in education and more of adult education and training, and I'm in my element in the classroom, as are all of us teachers, right? So we do our thing in the classroom, and suddenly everything goes virtual. And for you, it's also a different ball game. Kids in a classroom, keeping them entertained and focus is already a challenge. You're doing it virtually. So how did you cope with that?
Well, when the thing is, you see, the funny thing is, when I look back at last year, March, when we first went into the first lockdown, and I look back now, obviously I see a lot of differences. And I think the main thing was becoming au fait and used to using technology and trying to figure out how I can make full use of all the tools and the resources that I have available to me, and using that in my classroom, right? So some of the things that I had to get used to was, I remember sitting down and trying to figure out, right, how on earth I use Nearpod. So Nearpod is this app that we use for teaching, and I remember spending ages and ages trying to get used to it and going, I can't do this, I can't do that, how do I do this? And now it's like second nature. I just go in and I'm like, yeah, I can create this video lesson, and the kids are amazed, because the kids are like, wow, miss, you really know how to use your technology, and it's great. But I think another thing that comes is basically always being prepared for any situation that arises. That really helps. So when when we were just going to go into lockdown, one of the things that the schools did is we were already prepared. We had already given the kids their passwords, told them this is the platform we're going to be using. We were prepared. So I think that's the main thing. The main thing was making sure we were prepared, and then taking it from there, and then ensuring that the kids were always aware of what we were doing and why we were doing it.
I think, yeah, it is really important, because I know that, in a previous incarnation, I used to teach secondary school mathematics. So I can understand kids are very sharp. They are very, they need you to be very authentic. You can't bluff them. If you don't know anything, you can't bluff them. So you really need to know your stuff, and you really need to be ahead of them. And many of them are so technologically advanced that you really need to know your stuff. So do you ever get, like you said, do you ever get, oh, wow, Miss, you're so clever, you're so with it, you're so hip, and you do get that.
I get both ends of the scale. I get the students telling me, wow, Miss, you really have come a long way, you know how to do this. Then I get my own kids who are tech, very, very tech savvy, telling me I am apparently a boomer, which is supposed to mean that I'm not very, very good. I don't pass their levels, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, even for me, I am one person who kind of like resisted the whole tech thing. I'm not a techie, and I've always resisted going out there in social media and learning all these new tools and all that. Boom, MCO came. I really had to pivot very fast. And now I have younger people telling me, well, you're not bad, huh? You're quite out there on social media and all that. I say, you got to learn. As a teacher, you always need to be the first to learn. Otherwise, I feel that you get left behind.
Correct.
So what are the differences that you're seeing now, other than obviously that in a classroom setting, you're there face to face, and then here you're virtual, but what are the major differences between teaching in a classroom and teaching online? Would you find it more difficult in some ways, easier in some ways, more efficient, less efficient? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I mean, if you ask me, what do I prefer? Obviously, I prefer being in the classroom with my students, because there's nothing like that personal touch that you get to have with the students, isn't it? But I think if there's anything we can take away as educators from what's going on at the current moment, it's how to be resilient and how to adapt. So we've had to just adapt and try to make it work. So I think the biggest issue for me was making sure that at every lesson, my students had made some sort of progress in whatever I was teaching at that point of time. Initially, I found it very, very difficult to assess, right? Have they all made progress? In the classroom, I can just ask them a question. They tell me straight away, I get that feedback. Online, a lot of the kids don't want to say anything, or they don't want to answer, right? So that was when I had to try and think, right, how can I assess my kids so that I know I'm getting responses from them without putting them in the spot, without making them feel self-conscious about it? And that's where the technology comes in. So it was that, for me, that was the biggest thing. How do I ensure every student has made progress? What can I do to ensure that every lesson, every student is getting better at something, even if it's one thing? That's better than nothing, right? Yeah.
And so do you find that it's more efficient or it's less efficient teaching people online?
Actually, ironically, I actually think it's more efficient, because now with the technology and with all these different apps that we can use, I actually have reports generated for me. So I don't have to generate the report. It actually gets generated for me along with the student responses. So it's actually more efficient. Yeah.
I kind of agree with you there. Like initially, it was like, oh, go virtual. Oh my God, I got so much to do. But what it helps you to do is helps you to get very organized in what you need to do and what you need to deliver. And because it's not like being, for me, in a training, it's like a one-day training. There's a lot of things you can do in the classroom, and sometimes you do get carried away, and you lose track of time management. But here you have to, because you've got just so much time, and that's that time taken for them to get into the classroom, the virtual classrooms, come back and all that. So you need to factor all that. So you actually become better at planning things. And I do find that the trick, I feel, is the engagement. And to just keep engaging. And especially, I'm not sure how it is with children, even with adults, right? I need to be doing icebreakers, energizers, getting group discussions. It becomes very, very learner centric,
Mhm.
which actually I feel is a good thing. It's a benefit of the virtual platform.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I have to say I agree. And it's always trying to think of ways to keep them engaged by using different tools, isn't it? Right. So it's if chalk and talk is not going to work online, is it? You're going to lose the kids. So it's
Right.
always trying to use what game can I play with them? What can I do with them? What discussion can we have so that it's two-way rather than just me always doing all the talking. Yeah.
Interestingly, working with adults is not that much difference because
Really?
yeah, because the attention span online, it's not like say like in the classroom, I'm standing around, I'm talking, I can be a bit of a clown, use my, you go on stage and you act, and I use that in my training a lot. But here I'm sitting down, right? I can't get up and do something and
Correct.
distract them even with the storytelling. It's very much in the voice and the expressions, the pace and all that. So if someone is zoning out, they're not auditory, they're just going to zone out. So you just need to keep them engaged all the time, even with
Correct.
adults.
Yeah.
I mean, I have this problem, Valerie. If someone's on a meeting with me and they're trying to, or a webinar, and they're just droning on and on, joing on about something, and if it's so technical, I'll just zone out after a while. I try to seriously make notes. So I can imagine everyone else is like that. And I
I'm
have
completely with you. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've got an amazing ability to sit down and listen and focus on even stuff that's technical, boring, because I was trained that way as a journalist. I was a journalist for 10 years. So you go for a press conference, don't have notes and all that, don't have visuals, and you really have to listen to what the person is saying
Correct.
to get the point, you see. So I'm trained, but even then, I tell you, if I have to sit down and just listen, someone going on for 4 hours and there's no activities, no fun, no jokes, no games and all that, I think that was epic failure, in terms of a training or teaching program. So would it be fair to say that maintaining discipline or ensuring concentration among students in a virtual platform might be harder than in a classroom?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I can tell you, in all honesty, I think my biggest issue, right, is when I'm having a class is making sure all my kids have their cameras on so I can actually see what they are doing. And what's worse is the minute you start presenting whatever it is that you're presenting, they all start switching the cameras off again. And I'm like, switch on your cameras. But obviously, when you are presenting, you can't see what's going on, isn't it? So
Yeah, but yeah, what platforms do you use?
or we use Teams, Microsoft Teams.
Okay.
So because we use Microsoft Teams, the minute I start presenting, I can't see all their faces. I see one face if I'm lucky, right? So I really can't tell what's going on. So yeah, and maintaining discipline is really an issue, and students having issues with internet issues because everybody's obviously on the home platform at the moment. So when the internet acts up, you lose the kids, so they try to get back in. So yeah, it's tough, but I think we're managing it, and we're managing it as much as we can. Yeah.
Yeah, like we do the best we can within the
Mm.
constraints. Like for me, when I do trainings, I use Zoom, right?
Okay.
So there I'm able to see like a number of people. And I always tell my clients before they take me on, when I'm sending out my proposal, I'm having the conversation with them, I say, look, I have one prerequisite in my training programs. All your participants need to come in with their cameras on. And I will remind them if the cameras are off, unless they're using a phone or the connection is bad, then they have to ask my permission to put it off, because once I already know your face and you're actively participating, that's fine. But all of you have to have and I'll remind. And if I remind them and they don't put their cameras on, then what I'll do is bump them into the waiting room and I'll tell them I'll deem you as not being present. I mean, I know it's a bit tough, but you do have people, because they're in a work context, they're working in an office environment, some of them are at home, and they've got stuff that they need to do for the company. So they'll switch it off and we're carrying on. So I say, well, that would compromise the value of the quality of my training, and then I don't want them coming and saying, no, we couldn't get anything when they were not paying attention. So you just do
Yeah,
what.
but what's even funnier is, so we can insist that the kids have their cameras on, right? But what's even funnier is when we have these parent forums and the parents refuse to have the cameras on. So it's me talking to a screen. It's such a surreal feeling, I tell you, and there's dead silence, there's nothing.
You know, I mean, I'm just gonna put it out there, and if anyone's listening at any point, the whole purpose of having video conferencing facilities or a video call or being on Zoom or MS Teams and all that is so that people can see you and you can see
Correct.
people. So I think it's a sort of an etiquette, even for meetings. If you want to do a Zoom meeting and 3, 4 people on, you use the tools lah. Like I was playing around with you earlier, right? You can put in the function, put on some lipstick, now darken your eyebrows a bit, and you look like you have makeup. So some people have this excuse that, oh, I'm in my pajamas, I don't look good, I haven't put on makeup. That's okay. I think it's more important because one of the challenges of communicating on the virtual platform is it becomes harder to build rapport.
Correct.
But putting on the camera helps with that because I know your facial expression. I can see if you're smiling, you're frowning, you pull yourself back, you're sitting forward, all of that I can see. But if your
Correct.
camera is off, I don't know. I have no reaction from you at all. So how do I engage, right? So
it's that human touch, isn't it? It's being able to look into somebody else's eyes and say, yeah, I'm speaking to another human being, right? Yeah.
correct. So you're all out there listening, get on a video call or training or anything, put on your video cams lah, feel sorry for the person at the other end trying to deliver all that information, please. All right. So
Agreed.
great, right? So do you feel that virtual learning places more responsibility on parents to ensure that their children are keeping pace with the syllabus requirements?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it has to be a partnership with the parents as well as the school, isn't it? Because I think that I mean, in secondary school, I think it's a little bit easier because the kids are a little bit more independent. And where I am, I work together with the primary and the early years, and I know for primary and early years it really is a struggle for the parents because there is so much more demand on the parents to actually be there with the child. So I really do feel for them. In secondary, we've managed to manage it quite well, I think. And I mean, bless our kids. Our kids are really quite independent. They've really come a long way, and they've really shown that they can grapple with whatever the situation is, and they're really resilient. But occasionally we do have to call parents and say, I think you need to be more involved, or you need to try and help the kids out. Maybe they're not managing the workload. So yeah, it's always having that conversation with parents, but definitely it's a partnership. You can't do it alone.
That there needs to be more parents involvement now, and
Right.
and I totally get what you're saying because I'm talking to a friend and I'm saying, so how your kids are at home? She said, yeah, I'm trying to get her son is like 5. I'm trying to get him to sit down there at the kindy and go, but he keeps running away lah. Ayo, I don't know what to do. I'm like, what can you do?
Exactly. He's 5
Again,
years old, right?
yeah. And it's the onus is also there on the teachers to make it. You've got to sit down make a young boy sit down, a 5-year-old sit down for 3 hours to try and focus on something. Cannot lah. You need to be targeting your teaching, your time, your modules, whatever, at the audience. Having said that,
Correct.
I've got adults who cannot sit quietly for half an hour also. So
Exactly. Don't talk about the kids. You've got the adults that can't even sit still. Ah.
So, okay, coming back to the teacher's role. So clearly more parent involvement is required. But then, of course, all teachers have got their KPIs. In a normal setting, a classroom setting, you're told that you need to have so many percent achieving, that top rank of marks and so on. Yes. Do you think have KPIs been changed for teachers, like in your school, for example? And do you think that they should be?
Well, okay, let me backtrack a little bit, right? Let me use my own son as an example, right? So one of the things that my own son said to me last year after the whole thing was over, he says, "Mom, I really feel like I've not learned anything." Then I said, what do you mean when you say you feel like you haven't learned? He says, I feel like I've not made any progress. I'm supposed to be in this year group, but I feel like I've gone back. But when I actually asked him questions about what he had learned, he had actually learned. It's just that he wasn't aware. So I think if you ask me whether we need to adjust our KPIs, I would say no, because this is going to be the new norm, isn't it? And if we keep changing things and adjusting our KPIs and things like that, it's not going to serve the kids any purpose. They still need to achieve whatever. So for example, they still need to, by the age of 16 or 17, sit for the IGCSEs, and that can't be stopped. They have to do it, isn't it? So time is not going to stop. We have to move with the times, and we got to make it work. We got to figure out a way to make it work and push them.
Yeah, I asked that question simply because I'm glad you said that, because that's a very proactive approach to it. Because there are teachers who are saying, well, how are we still going to be expecting to produce those results and so on? And I'm saying, welcome to the real world, because everywhere else in every other job, you are expected. Maybe companies have changed their targets a little bit in line with, you know, the norm, but even if they've changed it, you still have certain things that you need to achieve, because you need to pivot. And if you can't, then well, that's not going to make you very flexible moving forward, you know, in the new world. So it feels that what are the challenges that students have had to deal with, that, you know, you've had to iron out, you know, from the beginning, right? And then, you know, we thought that, okay, MCO, we're all going back to a slightly normal way, social distancing in the classroom, and then now it's MCO 2.0. So we seem to have gone back. So what are some of the challenges, you know, that students have had to deal with, that you as teachers have had to help them with?
Okay, well, if I think about it, I think there's two things. From the academic side of things, it's number one, making sure that the students are learning, that the students are still performing, as we've just discussed, isn't it? That's the biggest challenge. On the sort of more well-being side of things, I think it's the psychological and emotional impact that this will have on the kids in the long run. You know, those kids that have got siblings, they're fine, but can you imagine what it must be like for a child that's an only child that has got nobody else to interact with? I worry about that, you know. So these kids, do they have any avenues, and having the parents watching them 24/7, not having that freedom to be able to socialize and mingle and interact with other kids? I worry about the psychological impact of being in lockdown and being so isolated. Are they going to be missing out on social skills? Are they going to be missing out on getting themselves, you know, rough and tumble in the field and getting into trouble and having to iron out those kinds of things? How are they going to grow up having this chunk of their social interaction life taken away from them? What's the long-term effects of that?
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see, because, you know, like my generation, we didn't have technology, so we were playing catching and, you know, running and streams and, you know, exploring here and there, and there was so much of fun climbing trees and all that. Then you got to the later generation, the millennials, right? So many of them are anchored to electronics devices, that they don't go out, they're in gaming and this and that, but still they had that social interaction in school. Now it's come to a standstill, you know. And I'm wondering, all those babies that were born last year and this year, probably the only people they saw were their parents and grandparents. So there are no kindergartens, and social conditioning starts from the time of birth, actually, who the people around you. So are you beginning to see any of these effects among those students? Are some of them having any mental health issues? Are they going through any sort of depression?
Well, yeah, there are some. I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, there are some already that we're beginning to pick up. But, you know, I think one of the key things is making sure that the avenues of communication are always there. So when the minute we spot it, we communicate as teachers and we say, okay, this is what we're seeing, and straight away we jump in to try and help the kid as much as we can. And if need be, we even have a conversation with parents to ask them to keep an eye on the child as well, because it's so important, isn't it? And sometimes as parents, they may not be aware that this is actually going on. So it's our responsibility and our job as teachers to constantly be on the lookout. And it's quite cute, because sometimes the kids will whistle blow on other kids. They'll say, I think so and so is not having a very good time. Could you just check on them? And it's so cute. So I'm like, it's so sweet, to see that they actually care about each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really cute to see. I mean, I'm looking at adults are going stir crazy. Adults are already reacting to this, not being able to go out, especially those who are living alone. So
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
things, of course, that we could do is to be interacting, calling those people who live alone and so on. And likewise with the children. So I suppose more conversations, one-on-one conversations.
Yep.
It really places a lot more responsibility and demands on the teachers, I suppose. And you
Yeah, it
really need,
does.
it really does.
Yeah, but I think for us the reward is after you've had that conversation with the kid or with the child, and you see on their faces that they feel so much better knowing that there is somebody else that they can turn to. I think it's keeping these avenues open, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think in a very paradoxical way, we can't communicate going out, interacting socially and all that. But in many ways, we've had to learn to communicate more on the
Correct.
virtual platform. And in some ways, it has brought people closer together.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I
oh,
agree.
so we've got that, the difficulties of kids focusing, feeling isolated, not able to go out, not having that social engagement that they do in a normal school day where they can go run, hang out with their friends, tell them secrets that the parents don't know about and so on. But on the flip side, what would you see as being are there any benefits at all of this form of learning for students? And if so, what might they be?
Well, one of the things that we discussed earlier on is that in terms of assessment for learning,
Mm,
I actually have more information about the kids now than I think I ever did before. So on that side of it, I think I know at every lesson exactly how every student is doing, exactly whether they understand, they don't understand, they got my lesson, they didn't get my lesson, because the tools that we're using tell us that straight away, isn't it? So
mm,
that's actually really, really valuable. And I think what the kids are gaining most is having to be creative, right?
mm,
So the creative element is something that they've had to deal with. So for example, if one of the projects that I've got one of my classes to do is we're doing poetry interpretation, and I wanted them to produce a visual interpretation of a poem that we've just learned. And they have to come up with either a video or an animation, and they're going crazy because they're like, oh, I have to learn this animation and that, and so they're dabbling, and it's getting them excited about poetry using technology. I mean,
yeah, I get you.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I get you. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. So they're getting more creative, more innovative. Would you say they're also learning to be more responsible and accountable, because there's not, that you don't have a teacher in class looking down and seeing what you're doing and checking whether you're paying attention and so on.
Yeah,
Accountable.
definitely they do, and they know. I mean, they know that the when they cross the line, there are going to be consequences for it. If you don't hand in a piece of work, or you've handed something in and it's an empty assignment, you're going to get a comment, and you're going to get a question, and where is this, and why is it not there, why is this repeatedly happening? So yeah, they definitely have to be more responsible and more accountable for whatever assignments that they have due. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that parents are not, it's not cheap to send your children to an international school, and it's our necks on the line if their kids are not performing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a final question. Now, I, as a trainer doing training for adults, when I go into a one-day training in a classroom, I come out very energized because I'm there jumping around doing my thing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
found that of course, like you, I prefer that mode of training, but I've learned to pivot to the virtual platform, and I think sort of we carry on evolving, but it takes a lot more out of me. And
Yes.
do like a
Yes.
4-hour session, and at the end of it, I come out, I'm really zonked.
I'm so with you. Yes.
but then you realize that, you know, that there's a purpose and all that in what you're doing. How do you remain passionate, energized, and enthusiastic day in, day out? Because you're doing this on a daily basis. I do the training maybe 2-3 days a week and half days one day, and then there's some weeks when I'm doing other things. So I'm just quite amazed. I'd like to take a page out of your book. How do you keep yourself energized, passionate, enthusiastic, not pulling your hair out?
Well, I think it's important to have other things that you do in your day besides just stay in front of a computer, right? So I've taken to going for walks in the evening after dinner, or going for a cycle just to zone out, or I meditate in the morning. You know, just little things that I do for myself. And I think that is what makes me a better teacher. When I've taken time out to do something for myself, then I feel that I can deliver, and I can be, you know, I can be better as an educator. Yeah.
Totally agree with that. So your schedule is like, I mean, are you like teaching morning till afternoon, or is it just that you have blocks of teaching and then
I
you have
have I have blocks of teaching, but I'm pretty much online by 7:30 every morning. And most days I don't get off till about 4:30, but there are breaks in between. So it's about from 7:30 to about 4:30. And one of the things that we have agreed with each other within the team that we are in is that we all knock off sending messages or emails by 5 o'clock if possible. And excuse me, so we try not to send each other emails, so we can get off our devices by 5 o'clock, unless there is something really, really urgent that needs to be sent out. So yeah, that's an agreement that we've made within the team itself, which is great, you know. Yeah.
And what about your students? Do they like have access to you 24/7, or do you have like a block of time where they need to call you? Because I think some people just don't know how to shut off.
No, they don't. I mean, we've got cases where kids have sent us messages at like 12 midnight, you know, and my question is, why were you still awake at 12 midnight? You're supposed to be in bed. And then so I make it very clear to them that you can only send me messages up till 4 p.m. and anything after that I will not respond to it until the next working day. So once you make it very clear, they will back off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
about the boundaries.
Sometimes and sometimes it's quite funny because I can see the time that they've handed in an assignment, and I notice it's like 1-2 o'clock in the morning. So they get a message from me, and I'm like, I noticed that you handed in your assignment at 1 a.m. Why were you? And then they're like, okay. So I'm watching you. I can see what you're doing, you know.
And you know what? I think it's important for the kids to know that as well. People think that,
Correct.
you know, you just need to be hands-off with kids and let them just develop on their own. But actually, the true measure of being felt to be worthwhile is that people are looking at you and that you have boundaries. If people care enough to put boundaries on you,
Yeah.
they care. So I think a lot of parents and people don't kind of realize that. But yeah, thank you, Valerie, for being with us today. It's been really interesting talking to you, and a good insight into the fact that while many people think that doing virtual teaching and learning is difficult and it's not as beneficial, you've given us some insight that there are some plus points to, you know, the learning in the new norm. And I think it might probably be something that lasts, even if we get back to, we have a vaccine and life goes back to normal. And that's a question: will life ever go back to normal?
What is normal?
Yeah,
We will
what's
have to
normal?
change. We will have to change our definition of normal, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm ready for that. I know that it looks like you too. But well, yeah, thank you for joining us this Friday afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was lovely. Thank you. You've been listening to me, Sheila Singham, speaking to Valerie Dombey on the Sheila Exchange about learning in the new norm. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week. Bye, Valerie. Thank you. Right, I'm going to switch that off.